You are listening to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where illumination and inspiration is but a click away. With so many genre topics for you on everything that you need to know in life. We celebrate and share the people who have taken the journey before you and who are now here to serve you with their wisdom and their knowledge. The next show coming up is...
Adding a new addition to the Wellness Journey podcast series, we present Loving the Natural You. As we travel through life, our mind, body, and spirit go through a multitude of changes. And without taking time to learn about these changes, you might feel lost, insecure, and unhappy. It's time to establish peace with those transitional periods we experience in midlife. It's time to focus on ways to honor your temple and locate your inner joy. Join me, Lynnis Mullins, on Wellness Journey podcast series as we talk with a new group of forward-thinking experts who can provide insight and help us develop another level of self-awareness through loving the natural you. Hello, and welcome to a very special edition of the Wellness Journey podcast series, Loving the Natural You. This particular series has all been about ways to love who you are right now in this moment in time, the natural you, and then ways to move forward from there, to continue to thrive and to improve and grow in midlife. We don't stop growing just because we're over 40. In fact, it's just the opposite. We begin to grow and improve in different ways that are far beyond what we could have imagined when we were in our 30s and 20s. And that's not to say anything negative about the 30s and 20s, but we all go through different seasons for different reasons. And right now, in the 40, 50, and 60 club, 60 and beyond club, we are all on this journey to learn how to thrive in midlife, to beat the odds and what society tells us we cannot do, and to realize that there's all kinds of things that are still open for us to do. There's all kinds of wonderful journeys that we can take as we age in midlife. And so I wanted to give you an opportunity to meet some of the authors on a book that I participated in creating. I was one of the writers, and it was called Power Up Superwoman. I think you might have seen the advertisement on the show page. And Power Up Superwoman is basically stories of courage and empowerment by 16 women from different backgrounds, but all on the same journey. That is a journey of self-discovery, of improvement, and of ultimately beating the odds and moving forward in our lives, learning and sharing wisdom along the way. I invited 3 of the authors to come and speak with me on the Wellness Journey, and that's the interviews that you're going to see. They took place on different times and days, but what I wanted you to get from these interviews is a sense of the difference in terms of why they decided to write the book, but the sense of commonality that all of us have as women. And that is the idea of continuing to search and seek out our best selves. So I hope that you enjoy this special series of the Wellness Journey podcast series, Loving the Natural You. Enjoy.
Keep up with you. Slow down. Knock, knock.
Oh, hey.
You haven't been looking so well lately. Are you okay?
Honestly, I'm stressed out. I feel overwhelmed and anxious all the time.
There was a time where I could not sleep. I had trouble focusing and I had really low energy. But ever since I started the De-Stress the Mess program, I found ways to manage my stress level. Here, let me show you.
When was the last time you didn't feel stressed? It seems every day there is something that causes stress, whether it's the job, family members, politics, traffic, or just the day-to-day stuff we go through. It causes stress, and stress can be a killer. Stress has been connected to obesity, heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and other chronic diseases. But there is hope. There is something you can do to help minimize that feeling of overwhelm, depression, and anxiety. You can decide to de-stress the mess, a holistic online course that teaches you how to address the feelings of stress and overwhelm by using holistic methods, aromatherapy, yoga, meditation, affirmations, and more. Minimize the impact stress has on your body increase the joy in your life, and take the Distress the Mess online course. Sign up today. Hi, this is Lynnis, and welcome to another issue of the Wellness Journey podcast series, Loving the Natural You. And, initially when I thought of this series, I really wanted to emphasize the idea that women need to love who they are as they are. Whichever state you're in is to love that state, love yourself through that state in many cases. And if you want to do something else, that's fantastic. But I always find that when it comes to making changes in our lives, we have to start first from a place of love. Loving who we are right now in this moment in time, loving ourselves so much that we want to get even better and maybe improve upon whatever it is that you want to change. But it first starts with love. So that's what I wanted to talk about on Loving the Natural You. And all through this series, you've heard from all kinds of experts in the field of health and wellness. And I wanted to share with you some other experts in the field of women's empowerment. I think it's important that while we're loving the natural us, that we feel empowered while doing so. So I based these group of interviews with the book that I wrote. See, it's matching my dress, by the way. Woman, and 16 women from all over the world, from different backgrounds, different ages, different backgrounds, same journey. That's what I like to say. And these are all stories of courage and empowerment. And today I have with me 3 different authors who all wrote stories in this book and have different messages. And right now I have with me Sarika Bhakta, and she's going to be talking a lot about what she did with her book. But first, I want to tell you something about her. She's a certified diversity executive and a visionary leader and entrepreneur. Bhakta was born in Gujarat, India, which I'm sure I mispronounced. And then she was raised in the American Midwest. And she went through the period of adjusting to American culture and was extremely challenging for her. And she was inspired by her life's mission of helping people identify who their true, authentic self is. And I love that message because that's all about empowerment. She is a seasoned and multifaceted executive who has over 20 years of experience empowering and helping diverse talent and populations in groups to maximize their leadership and potential while increasing the cultural competency and global perspective. Thank you so much for being here on the Wellness Journey podcast series. It's so wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me this morning, Lynnis.
Well, thank you. First of all, tell me a little bit about what inspired you to be a diversity consultant and then get involved in the whole idea of assimilation and helping leaders to find a way to leverage that and be authentic in their approach when it comes to leading people.
Well, it's really interesting. The word diversity, when I say the word diversity, how do you resonate with that word? And my life's legacy is to inspire and empower diverse leaders. And when I say diverse, I mean each and every one of us. At the end of the day, diversity is differences. And leaders, we are all leaders, whether you're in corporate America, whether you are in your own household, whether you're in the community, we have to have this feeling that authentically we are leading change. Because if you don't feel that we're leaders, how are you impacting to make a difference? And you asked how I went into this industry. I've always believed in diversity. When my family, we were immigrants from India. And when we moved around to the US, I came when I was 19 months old. My family was one of the first Indian families in middle of America in Quad Cities on the Illinois side of the river. And so I have learned a lot over the years, opportunities that are around this. Again, my impact is that I want to bring the diversity pendulum back into balance. When I say the word diversity, or when people hear the word diversity, I don't want them to think that is associated with another group. I want them to realize that they are diverse. We are all unique. And how can we authentically drive impact and change based on that?
That's a very great message, and definitely not the message that we're used to hearing when it comes to diversity. But it's empowering as well, and it kind of takes the edge off of the whole idea of diversity, because diversity actually brings to mind, when people talk about it, a certain amount of exclusion that is only for women or people of color. And then somewhere on the outside feel like they're being excluded. But your particular definition of diversity is inclusive. What has been the result of your programs in terms of being able to teach people about this new perspective when it comes to diversity?
is very refreshing because they're able to look at it from a different perspective. I want to always meet individuals where they are at on their journey. And in order for them to understand what I'm saying, I need to take the time to understand where they are coming from. So I do a lot of listening. Now with globalization and with technology, we have opened our viewpoints. So that means that we need to start listening to other people and understanding where they are coming from and help them along. By helping them along, we're going to help ourselves along as well. So very firm believer, and it's made a significant impact in the programs and solutions that I have been able to provide, because at the end of the day, we're part of this global fabric, whether you're looking at it from a community perspective or from a market perspective, global economy, global world that we are all part of.
Now, taking that philosophy, how does that tie into you making the decision to participate in the Power Up Women Project?
I believe in empowering and inspiring individual. That's my life's legacy. And so when someone taps me on the shoulder, like our wonderful co-author, Amy Wenninger, she said, Sarika, I am going on this journey. I'm writing a book. I would love for you to be part of it. We need additional diverse perspective. She asked, and I said yes. So one of my philosophy that I also shared in the book is, instead of stepping out of your comfort zone, why don't you stretch your comfort zone? I said yes, so I stepped a foot out and I kept it out. By doing that, I created a new normal for me by stretching my comfort zone instead of stepping out of it.
So tell us about a little bit about the chapter. I love the title. Share with our listeners what the title.
Yes, the title of my chapter is Log Kya Kahenge. That's a Hindi phrase, which translates into English, what will people think? I feel that this is something that stifles us as individuals, especially as women. Why did I pick that title? Is if I look at it from a cultural perspective, in India, our community is very collectivist. And what I mean by that is that whether it's your family, it's your extended family, or it's the village members that you grew up, or in your city or your community that you grew up, they became part of your extended network, extended family. If I'm here in the Western community society, it's a little bit different. It's more of the individualistic mindset process, where you have the individualism, and then in our community, we have the collectivism. So the do the good for everyone else. Western community, what do you think? What do you think we need to do? What do you want to do? It was such a clash for me growing up, because think about it, when I came to America in the late 70s, we didn't have technology or access to it like immigrants who come now. And so my parents, bless their heart, when we came to America, I always say they were frozen in time. They remembered their mother country, India, from when they came here. But then India was moving forward, progressing. So they held on to their culture, traditions, as they should. But then I was going to the Western education system where they were teaching me about individualism. Then I'd come home and it was all about, no, not you, the family, us. So as you can see, a lot of times when something happens or decisions about the family, what will people think? So it's so hard. I always, would say, well, does it matter what others think? What do I think? So I wanted to share more about what will people think? What does that have an impact on you as a woman? How much do you how much of what you think and your actions are driven by what other people think, versus taking the time to assess, what do I want? What do they want? A lot of times they say, well, I can't do it. Why? Because of my family, because of my community, because of my colleagues. And at the end of the day, you're taking everybody else's priorities and perspectives over your own viewpoint. So why don't we value ourselves? We should be valuing ourselves first and foremost, because no one else can tell us what our self-worth is.
You know what? That's interesting, because later on today, I'm going to be doing something about women and self-worth. And this thing that we have sometimes, especially as we age, that we're just not as worthy. Why do you think women struggle with this idea of not being worthy?
Honestly, I think, that it's because of the expectations that have been drilled in us over time. When you're growing up, said, get an education, find a good job, find someone you love, settle down, get married, have children. It's like it's drilled into us. As women, we have the opportunity to do things that other men may not be able to at times. Although Times are changing as well, right? I mean,
Times are changing, but I think that also a couple of things. We need to change the lies that we tell ourselves. We need to stop being vested in the outcome and just go ahead and do it anyway, do it with fear. Many times fear is nothing but false expectations appearing real. And if we can get rid of that idea of being fearful and letting that stop us, do it with fear anyway, because many times on the other side of that fear is an ultimate breakthrough, an opportunity, a blessing of some kind that we would never be exposed to otherwise had we not taken that leap of faith and gone outside our comfort zone, or as you say, stretch our comfort zone. And so when I think of women feeling like they're not worthy, I think a lot of it has to do with changing our self-talk. And to me, the first start is beginning to read books like these about women who tell stories of courage and stories of change and survival and things that they've been through in order to press through for where they are. Continue searching, continue looking for that aha moment that takes you to the next place that you want to be, instead of being stuck and rooted in the feeling of unworthiness. When you think about that in relationship with the work that you've done with women, what are some of the success stories that you've had?
Yes, I think that the success stories is that when I share with them my own personal journey, it really makes them pause and think, you can do it, why can't I? And so my example is I was in a very hostile workplace culture. And when you have this one life to live, why are you unhappy? Why do you feel like you have to go there? I came from the Red Cross realm as well. I was the chief operations officer for our regional chapter. I helped our team to scale up from a local disaster to a national historic disaster with the 2008 flood. And Mother Nature causes enough destruction. Why do we allow man-made disasters to add to that devastation? And that can also mean workplace cultures, right? When you have other people that are making you feel a certain way, why do you allow others to make you feel that way? So I realized that I needed to do something about that. I needed to make a change. I can't have someone else do that. I needed to do it for me. And for me at that time, it was a workplace culture. Even personally, it was also my racial ethnic culture. I was having a lot of tug of wars with me internally. So I needed to break away from these cultural chains. It was a challenging road. I didn't have anything lined up. I didn't have this business of mine that I created. It was over time that I was able to create this business. And people look at me and view it that I am so successful. And I tell them that, you know what, I was jumping into the ocean. I can swim, but I was jumping into the ocean. How long can I swim? I made it happen. It was hard. Days I cried, curled up in a ball like a baby. Then I said, okay, what do I want to do? If I can make an impact on humanity, that's my life's legacy. If I go today, I need to be happy. So as women, we need to find our purpose and not wait till we're aging to find it. And a lot of times people say, well, I can't do it because I'm obligated to my family, my culture. So that's why I say break free from those cultural chains. It is holding you back. You are living someone else's life story. When are you going to start experiencing
Years. Absolutely. And because the same thing happened to me, and I was 51 when I left. So I always say it's never too late. If you are feeling passionate about something and you know it's something that the Creator has brought you to do, and I feel that, you know, if the impetus comes in your mind that this is something you'd like to do, then that means that you really do have all of the tools that you need to do it. The first thing that you have to do to access those tools is get out of your own way and operate in faith and move forward, stretch your comfort zone as it were, and really begin to expect wonderful things to happen. And that does not mean that it's not difficult. I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't only until maybe the last 3 years that I finally like, okay, I get it. It took me a while. And while it's been difficult, it has been life affirming. And it's been empowering, and I would like to think that it's given me an opportunity, just as you, to speak into other people's lives, other women's lives, to encourage and to empower them to go ahead and pursue those things that they're passionate about, that give them a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning. And I'm just so excited to have participated in this project with you, Sarika. It's been wonderful. And everybody, those of you who can see and those of you who are listening on audio, it's called Power Up Superwoman, Stories of Courage and Empowerment. And for people who want to find out more about you and what it is that you do in your consultative services, how do they get in touch with you, Sarika?
Yes, thank you, Lynnis, for the opportunity to share that. If anyone wants to reach out to me, they can reach me at www.nikeyadiversity.com, or they can contact me directly at 319-651-6447. And or they can always reach out to you, Lynnis, directly as well to make it easier for all your wonderful listeners. And keep on roaring and soaring in life, Lynnis, because these opportunities, writing a book, has enabled me to meet amazing, inspiring women such as yourselves, which that is exactly what we need. I always say, what drives your purpose, your passion, so that you can live an authentic life, is surrounding yourself by those that do that and give you that mojo. If not, I always say, bless and release.
Bless and release. I love
bless and release.
I love that. Thank you so much, Sarika, for being with us today. Today we're going to be talking about that in particular, about a young woman's dream of maybe having her own business and some of the obstacles that she has faced while moving on her journey to wellness. Her name is Tracy S. Yang, and let me tell you, I met Tracy as a result of working on a collaborative book project. She is one of the co-authors of Power Up Superwoman. Tracy Yang is a thought leader, she's a business owner, and she's an artist. She uses her life experiences, such as previous chronic illnesses, to use as examples in her writing in the hopes that others can find their own form of greatness. Welcome, Tracy. It's wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm so excited.
Yeah, you're welcome. So tell me a little bit about you and why you decided to write that chapter. And tell us a little bit about the chapter for Power Up Superwoman.
Well, in my chapter, I decided to talk about two things. And I decided to talk about persistence and also lies and how you view yourself. Whenever we have failure or negative experience, we can learn from it and then use that learning as stepping stones in order to be successful. And the second part I talk about in my chapter is lies and then how we view ourselves. And I believe how we view ourselves is very important to be successful.
Okay. Well, I know you have a personal story in terms of your own wellness journey. Tell us a little bit about that. We were chatting a little bit before we came on, and you mentioned that you had two ailments. And what were those? And what were the symptoms?
Well, the first thing I had was Epstein-Barr, which is a virus. And then the second thing I had was gastroenteritis, which is basically inflammation of the stomach due to infection. And I was sick for roughly 2 years. And I took this time to self-reflect about life. And that's actually how I became an author, because I began writing. And I began writing quotes on my social media accounts. And from there is where my publisher found me. Sometimes when we experience something traumatic or we go through something difficult, that can actually lead us to a purpose as well. I do know that if I had not have went through what I went through, I would not be doing what I'm doing today. And so sometimes when we go through traumatic experiences, what makes us so vulnerable and so weak, it can actually lead us into our greatest strength and our greatest power. And so that's just something that I learned and that I took from my experiences.
I absolutely agree with you. I developed an anxiety disorder as a result of post-traumatic stress. And I talk about this in my chapter. And the post-traumatic stress came from how I found out that my mother had been killed. She was hit by a fire truck on her way to work. And how I found out about it was extremely traumatic. And I took that situation, and I realize now, and that's been 30 years ago, it was just 30 years ago this year. But it took me 20 years to realize that something was wrong. And it was really, I had one of those breakdown epiphany moments where I just couldn't go one more day without acknowledging how I was feeling. And isn't that so much like being a woman? Many times we feel a certain way in our bodies. And if it isn't totally debilitating, we just kind of put it off, because we're busy doing other things for other people, busy living our lives, sometimes in denial about how we're feeling, until you have this situation, this breakdown situation where you really can't go one more minute feeling this way without doing something about it. And that's what happened to me. And I have to say that if it hadn't been for what happened to my mom, I would not have had the breakdown that led me to want to get well, that led me to finding out about mind, body, spirit wellness, that led me to the idea of, putting together podcasts and a magazine and coaching services, and now even participating in a book to help women reconnect with themselves in a healthy way. That would have never happened. So, sometimes what negative entities will set up for bad, positive entities, what I call God, will turn around for good. And that's kind of how I feel life has a tendency to go.
Yes, I completely agree with that. And for me, that's what happened as well. When I was had a chronic illness, it set me up, like you said, to become an author and to start speaking and to start writing. And so people can find their voice, and that can turn into something positive for their life.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it can. And I like what you said about finding your voice. I think that one of the biggest challenges that we as women have as we age, because we do play so many roles, and we're mothers, we're wives, we're sisters, we're daughters, we're employees, we're nurturers, we do all these other things. And sometimes who we are, the initial impetus of who we are or who we want to be, gets kind of lost. And it really takes an effort to find that voice. And I think one of the first steps is when you're working on finding your voice, you have to let yourself know that first attempt or whatever it is, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be just right. We are all a work in progress. I mean, I remember when I did my very first show, which was like about 9 years ago. I mean, I didn't even know what the internet was, really. I used it as a recruiting manager for resumes on Monster. I would use it that way. And we had email, okay? And this is back in like 2007. But I really didn't know what it was. I thought it was a big deal when I found out about Facebook. I was like, whoa, my kids, I have 4 daughters. And at that time, they were young teenagers. Like, Mom, we've already been on there and off. And I'm like, what? Yeah, I found out about Facebook in 2009. I thought I was doing something. I was that behind. And so when the idea came to do a radio show online, I didn't really know what that was. I interviewed many, many people before in my career, but I'd never done a show before, never done anything on the radio before, never done anything on the internet before, didn't even know what social media was to be able to promote the show. But now, here I am, 10 years later, and I tried to figure out, my assistant and I tried to figure out how many shows I've done in that 10 years, well over 1,000 shows. But when I first got started, after that first interview, I was sweating, I was sick, I was upset because it wasn't good enough, all this stuff. But I did enjoy it. And I think if it's something you enjoy and something that you have a passion for, you'll work out the kinks. You'll figure it out.
I completely agree with you. It's, like we were talking about, it's something that you enjoy, and something that you mentioned, it makes you uncomfortable. That's something also to consider. It will make you uncomfortable because it stretches you, but at the same time, you'll enjoy it as well.
How do you push through that, being uncomfortable? That's a very good point, because usually when you want to grow, when you want to do something beyond your comfort zone, it's uncomfortable.
Yes. Well, one thing I would encourage people to do is, if you can't do something big, you start out small. So you take tiny steps. And so, like, if someone has a fear of, if they have a phobia, a social phobia of talking, then maybe they leave the house and go to the grocery store, and then as time goes on, they do a little bit more and a little bit more. And so that's something that I would encourage people, and then also become comfortable with the uncomfortable. So become comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes, yes. Right, kind of get, yeah, you're right, you're right. Kind of get in a space where, okay, this doesn't feel real good, but my ultimate goal is this. So therefore, I'm going to endure some of this stuff that doesn't feel right so I can get to where I want to go. I don't know. I feel like anything worth having, anything worth accomplishing, is going to take some muscle. It's going to take some, you know, your faith muscle, your confidence muscle, your self-love muscle, certain things that maybe are kind of weak, we're going to have to strengthen a little bit. But I can tell you from my own personal experience that we have in us so much that we don't use. I mean, studies show that we only use 9% of our brain as it is. So I guess we're saying, you know, use 9.1 to get to that goal or that desire, that intention that you set, that objective that you have to achieve it. You know, the series is about loving the natural you, basically loving yourself for who you are in this moment in time. What do you feel about that? Are you there yet? Are you loving the natural you? And if not, how are you going to achieve that?
Well, this is something I actually struggled with when I was younger. And I think at that age, when we're teenagers or young adults even, we're struggling or trying to find who we are because we're growing into adulthood. And that's one thing that I struggled with. And I had to learn how to accept myself and who I am. And that's actually when I started to blossom, because when you accept yourself and who you are, you start to show your gifts and your talents. You don't hide them anymore. And then you really start to be successful then, because that's how you are or can be successful, is through allowing yourself to be who you are, and it allows your gifts to just flourish.
Yes, and I guess basically embracing
Yeah.
who you are and finding favor. I mean, my goodness, you can't be all bad. You know, we have a tendency to pick away at ourselves, and this isn't right, and that's not right. And especially for women in midlife, you know, our bodies are changing. I can tell you, one of the things that happened to me when I started my business, for whatever reason, my chemical makeup changed. It could have been the pharmaceuticals I was taking, you know, who knows? But I developed a allergic reaction to hair dye, and I was so in denial about it. I would still use the hair dye. I mean, and I would look like a Gila monster afterwards. My hair would be, you know, black, but my forehead would be protruding. My scalp was oozing. My eyes were shut. I looked so bad that I scared my daughters one time. I mean, and then I went through this 5 different times. And the last 2 times I ended up in the ER because I had to get an epinephrine shot. Back then, you know, they didn't give it to you. You had to go to the hospital to get it because my esophagus was closing. So finally the ER doc was like, Lynnis, you know what? You may want to consider the fact that your life is a little bit more important than the color of your hair. And I knew he was kind of teasing me a little bit, but I said, you know what? That's right. At that point, I was like about 56 years old. I'd earned every gray strand in my head, okay? So what was wrong with learning to love this unique part of who I was? I'm going gray. I have, for whatever reason, developed an allergy, and believe me, I tried everything out there, even henna, which worked, but it turned my gray hair yellow. So, you know, I have black and yellow hair, so that didn't work. So I realized that this just wasn't for me. And rather than just hit my head against the wall and keep doing it over and over again, I said, okay, there must be something in this that I'm supposed to learn. And there was. I started letting my hair grow into being gray, and started wearing my hair natural, no more chemicals, no more perms or any of that kind of stuff. And a lot of times my listeners know, those of you who look at the the video portion of my show, you know that I usually wear my hair up in a turban with my hair all curly, or wear my whole hair all curly down, or sometimes I do a little bit more and blow my hair out dry like this. But I just stopped caring so much about the color of my hair. I mean, I look back at that now, and at 62, I'm thinking, well, at least I have hair. Because sometimes what happens as you get older, you start dealing with hair loss, you know? And probably if I had continued with putting the hair dye in my hair, that would have been me as well. So sometimes, you know, changes happen into your life to strengthen you, but also to propel you to where you're supposed to be. I'm a holistic living and wellness coach. How do I look like putting chemicals in my head every day? It's bad enough that I wear makeup. I'm not changing that, okay? I'm just not changing that. But I can at least say that I am chemical free when it comes to my hair. So, you know, that's just a small example, but a powerful one in terms of how we have to learn to go with that change in our bodies as we get older. I think that many times there's a reason for it. And I'm talking about the changes that, not the changes in terms of getting sick, but just the changes that come with getting older and wiser, which you will soon find out about, Tracy. Because I know you're not quite there yet, but you'll be there soon enough, that's for sure. Moving forward, what's going to be happening for Tracy? Where do you see yourself going over the next 5 years?
Well, for me, I want to continue my writing and speaking, and also my business, Kier Production.
Yes.
I want to continue doing that with videography. And really, my goal for that is to have positive influence. And you can find that in all my work.
Yes.
Like my speaking and writing is everything is positive, and how to become your best self. But I also move that into my videography as well. And I hope to start doing shows and stuff eventually, as well as the service part. And so I'm looking to influence people in a positive way there as well.
Fantastic. Well, I know that you'll do a great job. Your article is, or your chapter in the book, Empower Up Superwoman, is fantastic. I've loved it. I know it will resonate with a lot of people who are searching and looking for a way to get past whatever their particular challenges are. And thank you so much for sharing your story and your philosophy of life. It's really wonderful to have you on the show.
Thank you for allowing me to be here.
We present an inspiring piece of literature, Power Up Superwomen, Stories of Courage and Empowerment. This book seeks to drive passion, purpose, and power, featuring a lineup of groundbreaking women and myself, Lynnis Woods-Mullins. Rise with us as we celebrate women taking initiative and letting our voices be heard. Purchase Power Up Superwoman, Stories of Courage and Empowerment today on Bitly Power Up Superwoman. As I mentioned, we are doing a series of Loving the Natural You, and in particular for today, I wanted to talk with some of the authors of Power Up Superwoman. And we talked with Sarika Bhakta, and now I want to talk with Nicole Jensen. Nicole Jensen, I cannot say enough wonderful things about her. She has a fantastic story. For over the past 30 years, she's had the honor of coaching and training thousands of women and men to transform their lives and achieve extraordinary results in business and in life. In her view, there is nothing better than seeing people excel and live their best life, especially when they're elevating others at the same time. And that's definitely Nicole. She's a great elevator. She's a speaker, she's a coach, she's a host of Leaders of Transformation podcast, and her mission is to help facilitate global transformation from isolation and competition to connection and co-creation. And I'm so wonderful to share with you my friend and colleague, Nicole Jensen. Thank you so much for being on the Wellness Journey podcast series, Loving the Natural You. Great to see you here today.
Thank you for having me, Lynnis. I love being here with you and just hanging out. And you just look so vibrant, and you are the epitome of natural wellness woman. So, yes.
Thank you. Well, you know, since I think, well, let's see, I did get a chance to see you right before my birthday. Yeah. And so I have been celebrating turning 62. I'm celebrating for the rest of the year. Every day is a celebration for me. Every day, because so many of us, or so many people we know, for whatever sad reason, didn't make it to this point. And you know, that kind of brings me to what I wanted to talk about today in terms of empowering women. I loved being a part of this project, Power Up Superwoman. And as I said in the last interview, I even wore a dress to match it. actually, I didn't know that I was doing that, but I was like, okay, divine order, I guess. So,
Yes.
and I just love the concept of women coming together from all different walks of life and different backgrounds. I like to say different backgrounds, but all on the same journey, that quest of empowering women and sharing our testimony and our story. So tell us, first of all, a little bit about you and how you came to write your particular chapter of Power Up Superwoman.
Sure. Well, it's interesting because when Dominic came to me, who's the publisher, came to me and said, would you be interested in, being part of this project? It was a very crazy time in my life. My mother had just passed. I had just returned from Toronto, where she was, and had packed up her world and all of that, and went through that process of saying goodbye, and got back and found out that my husband had been unfaithful while I was away. So there was a lot going on. When I was asked to be part of this, and when I ended up, I was like, you know what? Originally, I was going to write a book this summer, and I thought, I don't know that I have a book in me right now to bring that, birth that forward with all the things going on, but I could write a chapter. And so I thought, what am I going to write this chapter on? And at the time, I didn't really want to discuss what was happening with my husband because I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. Now I know the outcome, but I didn't know what was going on there. It was still early, but I thought, you know what? If anything, when I think back to my life and I think back of the common theme, it is, and for myself and also for so many others that I have coached, there is this primary lie that we learn as children. And however it looks, based on personality, I teach personalities, I coach entrepreneurs and business leaders, helping them grow their business. But invariably, in order for them to be able to do that, we've got to address some of the underlying issues that are holding them back, which relate to beliefs, and the beliefs that they have about themselves, the beliefs they have about others, the beliefs they have about the world around them. Do they believe the world is a scarce place, a harsh place, a competitive environment, or is it like cutthroat, or is it collaborative? There's a lot that goes into identifying what our beliefs are. And so one of the things that for me as a young girl, one of the things that I learned is that I was not enough. No matter how it looks for anybody, it always comes back to that question of not being enough. It sounds differently. It sounds different based on different personality types. And so for me, it was, I'm not important, right? And I'm not worthy of love. Everybody's too busy. They've got their own lives. And so I'm not important. I'm not enough. And I'm not worthy of this love. Well, and I see how that played out in my life. And so in the chapter, I talk a little bit about where it came from, a couple of little examples. And then what I do is I talk about how when my husband, the first time around, had decided he didn't want to be married, and then we had gotten back together. But that first time around, how much that actually impacted me, and all of the unworthiness that I had been trying to avoid, trying to outrun my whole life, right? Came crashing down, and it made me realize, wow, you know what? I need to look at this. And actually, so the whole process was actually a gift. It was such a beautiful gift for me to understand that, I still had some work to do. I still had that unworthiness that was deep underneath the surface. And it takes something very painful to bring that level of awareness to me. So anyway, so I talk a little bit about that. And then I talk about how I was able to overcome that, how I got to the point where I realized that my worthiness came from within. It wasn't anything that I could be given from someone else. It wasn't about anything. Nobody could take it away from me. It was something that I was born with, and we are all born with this worthiness. We are worthy because we are. And so that was a really freeing opportunity, like for me to get to that point. And then now to be able to help other people to get to that point, loving yourself, not arrogantly, but just with a humble humility of really loving yourself for who you are and what your gifts are, what your talents are. I've always taught and coached around strengths, and now it's just taking it to that much, much deeper level. And then I give some tips in the chapter.
Great tips. And
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, what is it? What is your opinion about women, especially women over 40, and why we start to feeling less worth? Why do you think that women in particular, especially in that age group, seem to suffer from not feeling good enough?
Well, I think when you're young, as a woman, a lot of women, they derive their worthiness from their beauty. They get acknowledged for that. When you get a little bit older and you start to see a few wrinkles, I think it's always there, but it's hidden. It's kind of like what I was describing. It's about the outrunning it. We don't realize we're there. We're like, I mean, anybody, if they would have seen me, they would say, Nicole, she's confident. I would have thought, you know what, Nicole, I got this. I love myself. I feel good about who I am. But when somebody close to me, in my case, it was someone close to me that says, you're not enough. And you know, I want something else or whatever. And I realized that that's his stuff and that's not actually my stuff. So I got that later on. But in the moment, it still hurt, because what it did is it brought that thing that I was trying to avoid, trying to suppress and ignore. So I think that there's a lot of unworthiness. There's like this primary lie about who we are not. And we focus on that. There's a lot of people who are very successful that the reason why they focus on being so successful is to actually outrun, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them who actually what they're trying to do is they're trying to outrun the belief that they are not a success. They are not good enough.
Right.
And so it's really, I think it's a matter of realization. When we get into our 40s and our 50s and sometimes younger, you know, we get to that point in our life where we say, you know what, is this it? Right. Is this all? I mean, what else can I do? And then you look at it and go, well, all of the, you know, the billboards, they're all young and beautiful, and, you know, the up and coming successes, right? It's always the young people that they get the accolades and notoriety. Right. When you get a little older, it's like, oh, they're not as fast. They don't figure things out quite as quickly, or, you know, they don't understand the new way of doing things. Right. I spent a lot in business.
I think that there's paradigm shifts that need to be made with women. And you talk about things they can do in your chapter in terms of assisting that paradigm shift. We have to start looking at things differently and changing how we think about ourselves. And it is a work. It does take work. It's not easy to do because you have all this other stuff coming at you. But I really developed a way of creating a bubble so that certain things that just don't fit my mantra of what I know I'm supposed to be doing, it just doesn't penetrate the bubble. But it's only within the last couple of years that I have learned to create that bubble. And as a result, my business has just grown because I'm not allowing those outer circumstances to dictate what it is that God has told me I'm supposed to be doing. And many times, you know, it can be the ones who are closest to you, which is interesting because I'm also learning that my value is not rooted in another human being.
You're absolutely right. It's the people that are closest to us, because when they say things to us, it means more than when a stranger says. I mean, that's why we need to be careful and recognize that people don't do things to you, they do things for themselves. When they're saying something to you, they're not actually talking to you, they're talking to themselves. So they're saying, oh, don't take that chance because I'm afraid of taking that chance. I wouldn't take that chance. There's 3 things that I talk about in the chapter which are really important. There's gratitude, there's affirmation, there are all these things that we're being taught nowadays as people are becoming more aware of personal development, things that we can do to improve our lives. I love what Tony Robbins talks about, and he breaks it down into 3 areas. He calls it the triad. And all of those practices actually fit into that. And the triad is changing your words, changing your focus, and changing your state. Now, your words, those are the affirmations, the declarations, the words that we speak. Our words have power. And then the focus, that's where gratitude comes in. Look at what you have to offer. And that's where that worthiness comes, is like who you are as a human being. And so to have gratitude, not just for the people in your life or the things in your life, but to be grateful for yourself. So what you're doing is changing your focus to an abundance mindset, if you will, versus scarcity. Scarcity is the lack. I'm not enough. I don't have enough time. I'm running out. I'm too busy, right? And so we're only ever coming from one or the other, love or fear. And we partner with it, and for those people that have a faith and believe in God, God is love, right? Actually, it's funny because fear doesn't really exist. It's the absence of love, just like darkness is the absence of light. And so we look at it and say, what are you going to focus on? Are you going to focus on the darkness? Are you going to focus on the absence, the lack? Or are you going to focus on what you do have? And the beautiful thing is that when you focus more on what you do have, you also become much more aware of all of the other all the abundance that you didn't even notice that you had in your life. And then you start noticing opportunities. You start receiving opportunities because you're in a space where you actually can see it, because we have a reticular activating system in our brain, which filters in what's important to us and filters out what's not important to us. And so focus is really important. And then state is where you change your could be your physical state, get up, move around, get some exercise. You talk a lot about wellness, moving your body to get the flow of energy going. But it's also, cleaning up your state. It's keep cleaning up your environment, making sure that it's organized, that it doesn't have clutter and old stuff from years past, because everything carries energy to it.
That's another thing.
Yes.
When you're in business or when you're pursuing a goal or objective, there comes a time where you have to be open enough in your mind to say, okay, that was then, this is now. That was a great idea, but its time has come and gone, and now it's time for me to follow this other path. And it's not that that is no longer good or no longer serves you. It just doesn't serve you in the same way. And I think sometimes we have...
It got you where you are today.
Right.
In order to get to somewhere else, you need a new set of beliefs. You need a new, fresh environment. You need different energy around you. Absolutely. Change.
That's happening to me right now.
Yeah.
I started, my company's name is PraiseWorks Health and Wellness, and then I started the Wellness brand, and now I'm getting ready to move into Vibe Living, which is vibrant, intuitive.
I love it. Yes.
And it really will combine all of what I've learned. And it's not that those things are going away. It's just that now I'm moving into something else that is more of where I am right now. I'm very concerned about women as they get older to still feel that they can have a vibe.
Yes.
They can still be vibrant. They can still, be intuitive. They have lots of intuition, lots of wisdom.
Oh, yes.
Their beauty is internal, which exudes out. And they are fully emerged at this point, hopefully, because they're learning about the importance of the mind-body-spirit connection and how that makes them totally whole. For people who read your chapter in Power Up Superwoman, what is it that you want them to walk away with? What is it that you want them to learn, to be thinking about?
So I want them to walk away knowing that they are worthy. And no matter what anyone has said or done, like you said, that your worthiness doesn't come from a person. It doesn't come from an accomplishment. It doesn't come from any career that you have. It does not come from the outside. It comes from within. And when you have it, that it comes from within, it doesn't matter what happens around you. It's like the storm can be raging around you, but you are the calm in the midst of the storm.
Yes.
And you can weather any storm, knowing that. And having weathered many storms in my life, that's the thing that has held me, that has kept me strong. I watched my mother was like that. she had this calm. And I got that I see that in her now as I reflect back on her life. I see that she had that strength, and people were always saying, oh, she's a woman of strength. Where did that strength come from? Is that worthiness that comes from within. And so there's a freedom in that. There's a freedom in that. There's a love in that. There's a peace and a joy that comes from that. And I think that if women can get to that place, they will be able to be the nurturer that they're meant to be. And I'm not saying that they just need to be in a home and be a parent to children necessarily, because I don't have any children, but they can be a nurturer, they can be a lover, they can be a receiver, and they can begin to receive the abundance that is available to them. That's always been there.
Always been there.
Yeah.
It just needs to be activated. And so much of the spirit of lack that we think we're experiencing has to do with the lies that we tell ourselves.
Yes.
And the energy and the people that we're surrounded with, and the experience that we take to heart that we never work through and leave it. Because you're right, this too shall pass. When you get to a certain level, especially with a lot of our listeners are over 40, when you get to a certain level, you've experienced some things, you've survived some things, and you know that, okay, I've been through worse, and if he's brought me through this, he'll bring me through the next thing. And
Amen.
I'm talking about God. I really do believe that. And that's what I have finally learned. When obstacles come, I might take a hit for a minute, a day or so to lean into how I'm feeling. And then the next day it's like, okay, now let's go.
Yes.
Let's go. We have a choice. I'm so glad we have choices. We make choices every day. And I really want to challenge those who are listening to make a choice, to make it as simple as that. You just make up your mind that you're going to be empowered to make a change in your life for the better, that you're not going to stick with the status quo, that you're not going to compromise, that you're not just going to go ahead and settle and say, you know what, I'm done with that. I'm moving forward in my life, and that this is the thing that I'm going to pursue.
And stop resisting the flow of life.
Yes, go with it. Go with it. As your dad would say, lean into it. Go for it. I mean, what's the worst? Sometimes you have to think about, okay, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is that what you're going after doesn't work.
Yeah.
How many
it takes you further down the road. You're farther down the road, and as a result of that, you're gonna be in a different position to see the next function. The next phase in your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's been so wonderful. It's always wonderful to talk to you. And I want to encourage all of the listeners to also listen to Nicole's podcast. And the name of your podcast, Nicole, and where can they find it?
Sure. It's Leaders of Transformation. They can go to leaderstransformation.com.
Leaderstransformation.com. It's a wonderful show. She has some of the best, what I would call thought purveyors that are out there in terms of changing our mindset, getting more positive about our approach in life. It's just an uplifting, transformative show. So please check out her podcast. And the link is there in the show description. Thank you so much, Nicole, again, for being with me and talking about the Power Up Superwoman. And of course, the link to the Power Up Superwoman book is right here. And I encourage you to buy this for all the stories that are in here. I have to say that just a couple of weeks ago, I read every single one of the stories, and they all bring with them a powerful message of courageousness and empowerment, and also wisdom. So thank you so much for sharing yours, Nicole.
Oh, my pleasure.
And thank you to all of you for listening and checking out the podcast. I hope you have enjoyed this particular series of Loving the Natural You. I certainly have enjoyed bringing it to you. Have a fantastic rest of the day, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have something to share, please comment below. For more Wellness Journey shows, be sure to click the subscribe button below and check out my Facebook group, Wellness Woman 40 and Beyond. Continue taking this journey with us as we explore ways to be well in our mind, body, and spirit while loving the natural you.
We hope that you enjoyed the show and were inspired. Come and visit us at selfdiscoverymedia.com and see what other shows we have for you. And please do visit our selfdiscoverycommunity.org and see how you can be a part of giving back. Thank you very much.